Welcome to Waypoint Connect. It's a lot warmer than it was the past 2 weeks, but still, I hope you've got your coffee and that you're ready for us to have a conversation. Now, talking about a conversation, if we think of who we talk to the most on a daily basis, just think for a second who that person would be. Now, a lot of people will say, my coworker, my family, but the reality is there's another person that we talk to the most, and that person is ourselves. We should be careful though when we start answering ourselves, because that's a completely different topic. But for the point of our discussion this afternoon is this whole thing of we talk to ourselves and words have got a lot of power. If we just think of how we speak to people, what we say to people, what people say to us, and the impact and the effect that has in our lives. That old saying that we grew up with, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, that's very short-sighted, because in actual fact, words can hurt a lot more and more long-term, than physical pain and harm can. So words are important. If we look at what Paul writes to the Christians in Ephesians, he wrote them a letter, and in Ephesians 4 verse 19, he says the following: do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Now, that's a powerful verse right there, and that's an amazing principle to live your life by. And that's why we always say, who wouldn't want to be a Christian? Because it helps you lead a better life and have a better life. But even if you don't believe in Jesus, just looking at that statement there, man, how awesome is that statement? And we strive to apply that in our lives. Now, what flipped the script for me was the question to say, well, what does that say about how I speak to myself? And to put it into context, I want to approach it from two angles. The first angle is looking at Andy's message on believe in Starting Point. He makes the point that God's greatest gift to us is the fact that we've got imagination, that we can believe, that we can see something that's not there, and in that way create. And that's exactly what words do. Think of scientific innovations, discoveries. It happened because somebody believed that we can do this, we can make this, and this can be produced. And that's the results that they got. But it starts with words. It starts with formulating the ideas that then gets transferred into words. And whether we say that to a person or we say that to ourselves, it's got a lot of effect and it's got a big impact. So the one angle is that whole principle of speaking things into existence. And you can unpack that as far as you want, but the principle is still the same principle. But then the second point is this, and let me ask you this question. If you spoke to yourself, and just think of the things that you would say to yourself, what if somebody else said that to you? How would you treat that person? How would you react in that moment when that person said that to you? Now that kind of gives us an idea of the impact, because we speak to ourselves in that way, but if we take ourselves out of the picture, put somebody else in there and have them say that to us, we would get quite agitated, to put it mildly. So what I'm saying this afternoon is, let's also think of how we speak to ourselves. Let's think of our needs. So know yourself. Know what needs you have. Know what you need to hear to move forward. And then speak to yourself differently. Think about yourself differently. And that think about yourself differently starts with speaking about yourself differently for a lot of people. Because it's difficult for them to think about themselves differently. But if you start speaking about yourself differently, you can pave the way for thinking about yourself differently. And the amazing thing is, we're very harsh with ourselves. If we make a mistake, we don't give ourselves leeway. If somebody else did that, we would understand, we would consider their context, their circumstances, and we would empathize and sympathize, and we would understand. But with ourselves, we get worked up, we get angry, we get annoyed, we get agitated, all of those negative words. So why not dispense the same amount of leniency to ourselves? Give ourselves a break. And this is in no way an excuse for laziness or doing a job half-heartedly, but it really is just taking a moment before we react to ourselves and just speaking differently into our life. And it's just great how it links in with what we're doing with life groups as well, greater reward. And that whole principle of not achieving and not being there yet, but that's not the focus. The focus is the little steps that I put in place on a daily basis to move me towards my goal. So success isn't measured in terms of have I reached that goal yet. Success is measured in terms of the steps I take today to move me towards that goal. And part of that process for many of us, myself included, is talking about ourselves differently. So I want to challenge you this afternoon is when you have coffee with yourself again, have an open, honest conversation, but one with a little bit more empathy, sympathy, and love, and just speak positively about yourself. If you find that challenging, if that's difficult for you to do, feel free to reach out, to chat to myself, somebody on the team, and say, you know what, Dirk said this thing, but I'm really struggling with it. I'm finding it difficult. And it's okay to say I need help with something. Just have coffee with somebody else and just unpack this a bit further. But don't let this go past you and not do anything about it, because it's got the potential to accelerate what you're busy with in your life and what it is that you want to achieve. So I hope you enjoyed your coffee with me this afternoon. I hope you loved the topic. Comment in the section below. Dewald is there ready to respond to you. I'm very thankful for him for the input that he puts in our Waypoint Connect in order to do the administration, get everything ready, lined up, set up. So without his producing behind the scenes, getting everything ready, we wouldn't have had all of these episodes that we had. So really grateful for him as well. It's me speaking a bit positively into Dewald's life. Not that he needs it, but we can all do with that, and just simply honoring him for the work that he puts in. So it was great hanging out with you this afternoon. I'm looking forward to next week and also Sunday, where we can meet live. How awesome is that? Make sure you've booked your ticket to make sure that you've got your space. You'll find it on the app if you're struggling to find that link to book. And I just want to leave you with this thought. Have a great week.